Joyful Christian Hermit, happy and blessed Sunday. For days I wake up and I think it is Sunday, and this morning I wake up and I don't even know or register what day. I feel like I'm dying. Joyful Christian mystic feels like she's dying, and it's an odd sensation. I'm finally up and out, but it's probably the pain. It's at a level every day that I am not used to. And Lovey his squirrel over there just taunts Lovey. And I think it's the squirrels that have been pulling up God gave me this insight in the middle of the night, Friday night, after a stranger has left a little doo-doo for me to pick up. Thank you. Yeah, that's not yours, Mercy. Yeah, I get to, it's not I don't think it's the neighbors. The neighbors is a little bigger. Maybe. I don't think so. The neighbors does the backyard. It's okay. It gives me, that's a good bending and stretching that I'm going to need. I think I need to just try to stretch out more. My neck is very tight and worse. My neck's worse. So I think it's just giving me this sensation that is, and the pain is tough. So but I've already took my breakthrough pain med first thing this morning, plus my regular pain med, plus what has become, now that's my doggies right there, I think, yes, this morning. Plus, I have taken the BC, this over-the-counter stuff, that usually I never take, or except on rare occasion. I've had to take it every single day for a week and a half. So it's just, isn't this beautiful? I love the naked branches. See how I'm training these trees. We can, but there's new ones. I'm gonna have to get a ladder out. I'm just bouncing around from little thing to little thing that I do, just trying to keep going. But I'm just barely getting up. I don't even know what time. Maybe it's 2 or 3 in the afternoon now. Lovey, no, you're not gonna play with the squirrel. No. The squirrels have been naughty. The squirrels, I woke up in the middle of the night, Friday night, and I heard the mention to me within, it's the squirrels. So I researched sedum. Do squirrels like or dig up sedum? Yes, they do. So it made sense. It wasn't people pulling my sedum out and tossing them into the yard. It was squirrels, and then they would take the sedum out into the yard to nibble on them or just leave them. So, mystery solved. I love baby eyes, that mallows branches. Aren't they phenomenal? Just look at the colors along here in the branches alone, or even the ones we can't see. But this is a older miniature that I have moved several times, but see, it's cracked at the butt. Just such care. It looks like a little hobbit house in there, doesn't it? Down in there. Hope this is picking it up right. Yeah, and I got this here probably 6 years ago. I've moved it like 3 times. Strawberry Spring, and how dark those branches are. But the leaves in the spring are so delicate and tender and tiny and light colored, very light colored leaves, and then they turn red. And then this is the rose mallow, and I just had never noticed the what would we call that? Pale chartreuse, light lime. Then this one, let me try to think. Gloria full moon maple. And it just has more of a smooth mark. It looks like little seeds in it. Little teeny bits of caraway or something. Pale caraway. Little white dots in that trunk. And then here we have Bayou, which has the apricot and pale yellow. And it will get more apricot and even into some orangey, peachy tones in the winter. Something's out here. I think it's a squirrel making a racket, or maybe geese. We can't really see the branch. These are smooth. The butterfly bush is smooth brown in there, and amazing how long those leaves are staying on, which gives me hope, because once leaves are totally off, you shouldn't be planting in the fall. But we're having a very late and extended autumn, and I'm loving it. And I'm grateful, because something's just not right. It's probably all coming from my neck getting worse, so I've lost impetus to function and to do things other than just little piddly things. I worked on a paper scraps birthday card for the grandson, even though I got very frustrated with him yesterday. But I shouldn't. He was kind enough to help me initially. I was trying to watch the daughter play at nationals, and I don't know what happened with her partner, who's an excellent player, and they could have won. She could have medaled. The daughter could have had a medal at nationals, but somehow the other woman overextended herself and was double playing yesterday, playing mixed and women's doubles. Oh, look at that. This is sort of an olive green down in here. This one is Sanyo no Mato, and I've moved him twice. It's lonely man, solo man, an alone man alone is the English interpretation of Manyo no Sato. And this one looks odd. It's short and stubby, because I had to top it. The whole top of it died where it was before. And that can happen sometimes. With trees, it needed an amputation. Something happened to the top portion, the leader of it. So it doesn't really have a main leader anymore. A main leader is the trunk going straight up and continuing on up. So I had to it's just going to be more of a bushy looking, and I'm going to keep it more narrow. Odd as it is, I think I am going to plant another Ryuzen in here, or yes, I think so, because it likes a little bit of protection, but it will be full and solid and a beautiful autumn color, but it will three-fourths of the year it will be my blind there. I won't have to I don't like curtains, but here I need one because my bed's just right there, and so I put a piece of cardboard up there. Cardboard's been there for the 6.5 years I've lived here, but I'll just have a tree there instead. And I still haven't removed the horehound. Figure a place, probably over in here somewhere, and just sort of open this up a little bit, because this Japanese maple is really, this is all very, see the dark red and really dark greenish brown in the trunk. Kuruhaimi. This is a little short shrubby, and all of these are errant, that these get nipped off. These are just bizarre growths in the time of late summer, when they just have this wild, crazy spurt. I think the rosemary can stay here, but I'm going to. I had put a string around it before, but it broke. I'm going to get this tightened up. I want it tightened up. The lavender has not done well here. There's not enough water here. However, I did put Weeping Wonder here last night, late yesterday, and I hope Weeping Wonder will be okay here. It needs some shade. It may not get enough. Well, in the spring and summer and fall, when this tree has leaves on it, and once this grows, I may have to pull this tree out a little bit, or in the spring move Weeping Wonder to yet another place. Once I see what's growing down in this corner where I put a couple of other trees, the Chinese fringe tree will eventually get larger, and I think it isn't a slow grower. So, but I also put the Emperor 1 down there, which can take full sun and heat, and it will stay a dark red, a maroon red leaves and things. So that can provide some shade. So I might be able to get away with putting Weeping Wonder down here. I'd really like to see Weeping Wonder. Up there, there's no chance I see it from the bed or from the, I see it from the patio. Oh, Lovey, you sort of startled me there. There's a duck that he now wants to chase, a mallard. He's feisty today, Lovey is. So if we get too much pulling, oh, it's a squirrel. Oh, the squirrels get him the most. They're teasers. So, oh, look how Chief Joseph, Saint Joseph, that's my son's prayer tree, because his name's Joseph. How gold that got already, isn't it? I just love it in the wintertime. It gets so gold. And I have another one that's turning gold. So anyway, I think, and even if I have to bring the umbrella that I got for my patio set that I've never used, because I don't sit, but I do have a lounge I could be on, but I haven't had the luxury of that. I have always have the work to do and haven't gotten it done. And this fall I've been, how long has it been? I've been really a dud. But about 10 days now I haven't felt well, but a week I have felt lousy. So I've got to pull out of this. I don't know if I will, but I can't think like that. I've got to pull out. I still have to plant this one, and I forget the name of it, this little conifer there, but it won't get too large, but it likes a little protection. But I might try it back in here. I think I might move that, trying to think of the name, but you see the green sticking up there. It gets to be a huge, tall flower, gorgeous blue or purple or white. They come in those colors. No, it starts with an H. But anyway, that I can move elsewhere and then maybe tuck the conifer back in there. Or I might just try it out around in here and see how it does with some sun. Okay, dogs, Lovey, let me grab you up close. We're not going to have that. We're not going to have the pulling on me. I cannot tolerate the pulling. So I've gotten the roses in. This rose was here, not originally, but I think they probably planted it later on because it still has a scent and it still blooms. Look at this, still blooming. What are we on, November 23rd, I think, or 24th? I moved Angel Falls over here. It's already looking happier. It had way too much moisture over there. It's in a lower, even though I had it up high, I planted it up high, but it likes full sun and it's already just perked up, just being out of the moist soil. This is plenty moist, but and if I have to in the spring, we'll see how it goes, because there's a watering system that goes to these roses from the original owners of the house. So if it's too much moisture, I'll pull it up and mound dirt around it more. Get it up high, plant it high. The Goldilocks over there, that little tiny thing down in there, little conifer, it has a little touch of gold to it. That had a full top half that was so stylish. It had class, had an unusually striking shape to it, but the top part died. And I cut it off just in time. Usually you cut off a conifer that's starting to die and it'll never come back. It just keeps dying. But that had enough stem. You see the stem sticking up. I left them a stem, but it's making it. It survived. So it's the first time ever I've had success with a conifer that was starting to die, and I got to it in time. And it had enough space on that one main leader of the top part that had died, that I could salvage the bottom part. So it'll be a stubby one. It's okay. I just wanted I wanted to have it live because I like that Pinus parviflora Goldilocks. This is supposed to be gold, and Aurea, and I give you the name of it when I look at the tag. It is supposed to be a fast grower. It's been in 2 years. Gold Horizon, Cedrus Deodoris. So it's just not. But I'm going to give it some of my potent special mix fertilizer in the fall. And in the spring. And see if it takes off. Come on, Lovey. Come on, Lovey. Oh, he would love to be off leash. And Mercy too. And it's a shame. But we're doing well with the HOA guys, and no sense in getting them going. And I don't want them scaring the geese. That's all he wants to do is go out there and chase those geese. And he would like to get over to the neighbor's yard and get that squirrel. Oh, there are the squirrels in my yard. I'm going to get squirrel deterrent because I didn't realize what a problem they are for gardens. Now I know who's been eating strawberries. Lovey, no, the squirrel's going away. I know the squirrel's going away. And it's Lovey, it's not a nice squirrel. They're filthy. They are disease-ridden. I was tempted. You guys will probably be aghast, but I was tempted when I saw on Amazon they have traps that give a percentage of instant kill. But on the island, I had to kill raccoons, rabid raccoons, and it was disgusting. I'd never killed anything. But I tell you, sometimes it's survival of the fittest, and you can't have diseased, and they were stalking me. It was getting bad. And this man and his wife who would bring me communion, he needs prayer, Robert. He's had a heart surgery, and then he just had knee replacement. So please pray for Robert and his wife, Diane. They were the only Catholic couple on the island. They helped me. They brought me communion, which was sweet. I didn't explain to them the other. I accept it, if someone brings me communion. But I am fed from the ecstasies and from God. So, and I've tried to explain it. It's a mystical thing, and it's just hard for people to grasp. So I accept that. Many people do grasp it. Many of you grasp it. I had a video that I did yesterday that I ended up just deleting because it was this. I don't know about this tree. It's not ever worked out the way it was supposed to, and it was a gift to me from David's wife, Gail. David died from he had the most fabulous Japanese maple greenhouses in southern Illinois. And they're no longer. But, now here's the new acquisition I got that turns gold in the winter. Let me read what it is. Got this year, and it's liking it here. And it's starting to turn gold. It's a Scotch pine. Oh, Mosley Scotch pine. So, and we'll see in the spring. This is the only, other than that pink one down there, the only original rose I left. Or no, that one I left in too. But we'll see how this does in the spring. But it still was blooming. So, see how it does. My neighbor asked me what this was because she liked these little fluffs, these little tiny white, odd, fluffy things on it. This is an anemone, white innocence, anemone, and it's a beautiful white blooming flower, perennial. I asked her if she wanted a start of it, and she didn't. She doesn't want to get into plants, and people are smart. I'm not. I get myself way in over my head. And this green feathers. Now doesn't that look like that's dead? It's not. And I had to explain that to my neighbor. I knew she would worry and think it was dead, because she thought Angel Falls that was over there in that little hole down there where it's too moist for it, and she thought that was dead. But that one would have died had I not moved Angel Falls down there, way down there, because it didn't want that much water. But no, this is a taxodium, a cypress, and it's a pond cypress. It would love being even right down there, but it's getting all this runoff coming down from my neighbor's sprinklers and from mine. So it loves it there. I wanted it down toward the end, so just get the benefit of all the runoff water and help absorb it even, so it wouldn't puddle out there in the grass. And but it's a bright, like a chartreuse green type of, there's different varieties, different cultivars of taxodium. And so this one is it's called Green Feathers. It's very, very fine and wispy and interesting. Look at the branches on it. And then in the fall it turns bronze. And then it'll drop. It's not a needle. It'll drop its leaves. And this, I need to get the post down in better and get this tied up. This is one that doesn't have a good leader. This was not a specimen from the nursery, the paper bark maple over there, but it was the only one they had, and it will grow 1.5 feet or more. It grew about 2 feet. I got it midsummer or a little bit later, and it took on some nice growth to it. So I'll have good shade back over here. It could be that I could bring Weeping Wonder back in here, although there's not much sun from my neighbor's side. But I have in mind, I might move the little fir down in here. And I could put I've got this right here, this little tree here that will get 10 feet tall and 3 feet circumference. It is red sentinel, Japanese maple. Dark, stubby, strong-looking branches, deep red, and bright red leaves all summer and fall. More bright even in the fall than other times. So, and it will withstand sun, and of course it can tolerate some moisture. So that might go back over here or up a little further. I don't want it too far up, because once this Eskimo sunset tree here that I have stuff twill. I have sewing twill pulling some of its branches up to get it in the shape I want. And I will have to take those off in the spring, once they get formed, because it can get too much for branches when you tie them. I usually use twine or a tape of some kind, a stretchy. The stuff, like tomorrow if I get a blood test, I'll have extra of that tape they use around the spot, and where they put a little piece of cotton so you don't keep bleeding. And so that's what I use to tie up my plants then. I just love it when I get extra of that from a nurse or from my blood tests. But yeah, so but there's a little Japanese maple here that has an iconic Asian shape to it once it grows up. And Ajimi something, anyway, Inago Ajimi. And it will be a beauty. See how tiny it is. But it was the only one they had, and in the 1 gallon size, which of course is least expensive, which is my price range. Other than if, like the one I got that was $100, but I gave it to my neighbor man because he loved it, and he helped me lift that tile up inside 2 times, so 3 times maybe he came over. Oh yeah, 3rd time he came over, helped me just get the tile up to use it in the tile saw. So nice man, Brian. And he loves gardening and is working in his backyard developing it. And he spotted my prize tree that I had found at the nursery and snagged immediately because it's so rare. And he loves it, and I'm trying not to miss it. So It's not worth being attached because, like I say, I feel like I'm dying anyway. So, and I am. We all are. Every little molecule and cell in our body starts to die off, and when we're younger, new ones replace, and eventually we get something, and they don't replace, and they don't replace, and we're free to leave. God calls us to another eternal, beautiful heaven. So now there's this variety of lavender I could put in front under the window. This is nice and compact, interesting leaves on that, and because the one in front under the window now blooms well, and this did have blooms, I trimmed them off, the big long stalks, but isn't as compact. I might do, and this whole area here, this is just isn't developing how I wanted it. I just don't know what to do with this tree. It's called Illinois Sunrise. It came from a what's it called? I forget the name. When a tree develops out of a regular tree with a known name, cultivar, and a new one comes up down around it that is different, but from that tree, from a seed. And I think it is a mongrel maybe it's called. And if it's a beautiful one, the botanists or the nurserymen who find it give it a name and start propagating it and selling it. So Gail, when she was shutting down her Davidson's, the nursery, going on in her life, she had met someone and was marrying, and they were going to not have all the work and effort of the huge nursery anymore, and decided not to sell it. So, but she sent that and some others. I bought some. That one in front, Roby's Twist, I bought that ginkgo. So she sent that as a gift. So I hate to part with it. It's just not. I guess it's okay there. We'll see. We'll see in the spring what we all think. But this little fir likes some protection. But I think I could move it up in here and maybe move the little low one, that little low red feathers that's down there on the ground, a little low to the ground Japanese maple. Move that out somewhere where it's going to be visible more, and maybe get the fir, that very, very rare fir over here, right over in that spot. Even though there is dandelion beside it, I'll find a spot for it. Maybe I'll look for that, but it has to be protected some, and it can handle some moisture. That's why it's there. But it's lost there, I think. I'll see. And it didn't grow. It's not a fast grower, at least not so far. But some of these rare ones, like there's one on the side of the house, I didn't mention it this time, but it has all the cones on it. That's a very rare one and needs lots of protection, that one does. So from the elements and from full sun, and doesn't want too much water, so I have it planted way, way high in the ground. So this thing is a dispendable, but I rather like it. And I don't mind that something it gets a little natty looking, but and it's growing faster than what I thought, but I like the texture, the color. I don't mind having the die off in there. Get some gloves on and go in there and scrape it out, scrape out the dead needles and things. Tsuga. It's a tsuga. 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 And aurea. Tsuga aurea. Golden tsuga. So this is the garden scene. I find, that was what Weeping Wonder was in. So all Well, since the end of June, or June 23rd or 23rd was when I about died. It would have been about the 20th or the 19th when they came, and the young man came back on the 20th, Friday the 20th, to finish getting the stumps out from taking the trees down, I think the day before. And that's when he accidentally cut into the pipes, the watering pipes, the sprinkler system pipes under the ground. Didn't know it, and it took 2 days for him to start to, really gurgle to the surface. The water leak, the pipe broke open more, obviously, and came up. And I was out here that Sunday night then, at 9 when I discovered it, digging and digging right over in there where all that moisture still is, and lower, because I dug so much and did in my lumbar, and the next morning then that caused my gut attack. That caused the septic shock. So that was momentous. Well, let's see what's up here of interest. Can't really see. There's my little kawais. I have 2 kawais because they're so lovely. One in back and one in front. Just this little thing. And I think I'm going to move this out of the way because the kauai likes a little protection, but this is overwhelming it, I think. And I have a sage, Thai sage down there, Thai variety, that just came up from seed. So I'll move that. Maybe my neighbor would like that. She said, I don't want any plants. I don't like plants. She said, I don't want to work. I don't want to work. And she's smart. Well, her husband's work. He is. He's given up. And so just sits and watches TV, and once a week, or in the fall, maybe once every 3 weeks, he gets on his riding mower and mows their little tiny bit of grass. But other than that, he doesn't even go to the mailbox. So he's declining. I'm declining, but from my arachnoiditis and my bad neck and spine, and probably my septic situation didn't help any, did it? I'm not going to complain. I just feel guilty that I'm not doing the work I need to do. The inside of the house is just really stacking up with even everyday kinds of things. I'm just exhausted. But I like coming out with the doggies. They need to come out, at least get some fresh air. What is this, Mercy? This is a root ball that I'm not sure what this came from. This little root ball. But I was digging around over here, so something that had died and didn't make it. But what a nice little fascinating root ball that is. I'm going to just stick it back down in there and let it become part of the soil eventually. So I have room in the spring if I want to get, I think I figured 3 more. I have holes for 3 or 4 more roses, or something else. I might, we'll see. I might just keep it with 3 and not 4 and keep, or less. I decided I put this Archer's white pine down there. It'll get eventually maybe up to 4 feet tall, sort of conical shaped, if I want. I mean, if I can sort of train it. I sort of want it to spread a little bit before it gets height. But I want it to have a little height. And the whitish blue, that's interesting. Oh, the needles are interesting. I'll give you a close-up of this. It's just, they're very soft, very soft. But it likes full sun. Better double check that. I'm pretty sure that it takes full sun. It's Archer's dwarf white fir. So a fir does like moisture. So that'll be okay. I'll put one of the rose leaders, watering leaders down in here. It came from J.W. Archer from Farnham, Surrey. This is one, like I was telling you about, that came up with this man's, in his nursery, J.W. Archer. That's why he named it after himself, after his nursery. There's a man in Holland, Vanderwall. I think it's called Vanderwall's nurseries, big nurseries, and he has several trees, conifers and Japanese maples and others that are named with Vanderwall, or Vanderwolf it is. A Vanderwolf Japanese maple, and I forget the other name he added to it. It's something to do with its shape or type, but because it was a mongrel that grew up, and then he cultivated it. It was of interest like this. This came from some other white fir that already was very typical and known in the trade. And here came up this little tiny sprout beside one of his trees on his nursery, and wow, that's interesting and different. And it proved to be a good little cultivar, a dwarf version of some other tree. So this will be 4 feet by 3 feet wide in 10 years. 4 feet tall, 3 feet wide. Likes full sun in dry, well-drained soil. So this drains really well back here, and it's drier. Up here is where the watering line is. So this should be just fine here in full sun while we get it here. If it's too much for it, I'll just keep an eye on it. But I thought I like to have the variety. See, down there's the angel falls with the weeping habit and the graceful long needles and the draping, and it will develop a beautiful cape. It will get tall as you want to let it get, I guess. I mean, it'll eventually stop, but it'll just keep mounding on top of it, and you keep it staked up. Otherwise, it'll just mound closer to the ground, which some people do, and it can be lovely, especially if you have lots of space. That can be very interesting to let trees mound. And then here's this Cedrus deodora that's, well, I guess it's a little more golden looking than it had been, but I planted it there because it was supposed to be a fairly fast grower. And I thought it could, grow up behind my stubby little Scotch pine there. That's interesting. And I'm keeping that one, that size. I think I'm just going to keep that one little hat. Reminds me of the British palace guards hats. So see what happens in the spring with new growth. Something will come out of the top of that. But and to just sort of keep it in that contained size. And I could go in and prune it out and totally change its structure, but that's its natural structure, to be stubby and full-bodied, chunky. So I'm gonna leave it like that. This, we'll just see how this does. But this has a different needle structure, different color than any of these. I'm trying to think of the name of that, the first name of it, the common name, or the name that it was given by the grower, whoever developed the cultivar. So I recall it's a nice little name. But anyway, so they all have different textures. Goldilocks down there will have the gold, and it's a Pinus parviflora, totally different variety than these others. This is a fir. That's a Scotch pine. That's a cedrus, a cedar. Angel Falls. Not sure what that is. Anyway, it's a weeper. This Church Street steeple. I think this is a red pine, and let's feel the needles. They're soft needles. But this thing was maybe this tall, and it's gotten a lot of growth on it since it likes it here. It's got a little cape down at the bottom. That's sweet down there. I'll leave that. That's always lovely to have a little cape. Anything of interest. And then little Mosley there. That's What is Mosley? Well, I think I'm trying to think what kind of pine it is. Pinus. Then dandelion, very tight, short little needle. This was a rescue I did. I got this for like 3/4 off, and it looked terrible. And it took a good 3 or 4 years for it to come back, but I got in 1 year and really cleaned it out. It's a Norway spruce. So we got that. We've got the fir over there, another fir, but a very, very rare variety of fir. We have the Korean firs down here that need protection, like some moisture. Firs, the softer the needle, the more they can handle a little moisture, but also like protection. Then this is a Serbian spruce, Picea omerica, and this is an aureum that had too much shade for when they had all the previous neighbors that lived there had this enormous willow tree, pine trees. It was loaded with shade. It was so dark over there, but it cast shade all over here. So this, when I got it, it had some gold to it, and it just has never bounced back to gold. It's like it programmed itself to the shade, and it's been 2 years now in full sun like this. So I don't know if it will make it back, but it's a beautiful tree. But I paid extra for the aurea because that's rare. The rare Picea omerica aurea is not at all as common as just the plain Picea omerica. And as some of you may remember, I had the pendula bruns. I was sold, it was supposed to be a pendula bruns in front, and some kind of a distorted aberration that I ended up making $25 on by selling it to another neighbor. I didn't even remember what I'd paid, but I found out later, thankfully, I hadn't paid much for it. I should have known, but it was on sale in the fall, but I should have known it wasn't going to be a true Bruns, because the true Bruns is more like even more dramatic than the Church Street steeple. It weaves like a snake going up. The true pendula Bruns is, I had a phenomenal one back in the Midwest that I probably could have taken it on the truck because it was so skinny, but it was tall. But the realtor, his wife fell in love and wanted to buy it, and they paid for it. They were willing to pay what it was worth. So, that was, sometimes we have to be practical, don't we? So, and this little guy, this starfish, Japanese maple, called starfish, peeve starfish, P-E-V-E. It's not really grown much. Well, probably doubled its size, but should have done a lot more. But these are the ones that I'm going to spray come spring, because they've got some kind of a dust mite or something with them, or something's going on with them. So, well, I think I better get the doggies. This is just strictly a garden talk, isn't it? The video that I deleted, I really hit hard on the spiritual versus the temporal. And I probably will again, but I thought, lay off of it. Most of you get it. And it had really more to do with, also it spoke of hermit life and but the people getting so attached to the temporal, and all of the rituals, the traditions, the laws, the canon laws, the protocols, the postures, they're all created by humans, but they do add to the beauty of the Mass. I said in that video that it's like a ballet that we're all participating in, an artistic movement of worship of God, making it beautiful, doing things in unison, and reverence and all. There's nothing like a Catholic Mass that the people are with the liturgy and the rituals and the traditions and all of it, the whole ball of wax, as my dad would say. But attachment to all of that, to the point that we come, and that's what we think of no, God wants us to worship him, not the temporal tangibles that we've fallen in love with, and not to attack them. If God decides to feed someone, God can feed us how he wants. He can do with us what he wants. And if someone has some kind of a rare phenomenon repeatedly, and it's been discerned by bishop, priests, one a very venerable priest indeed, and a priest for years and years, who knew me well for years, it's not for us to condemn that person. They're explaining it. I was explaining it to you all, and this one person couldn't grasp it, and I suppose a lot of people can't. And why I'm not in Mass, not sitting there, and why I'm not consuming a temporal tangible host. And in that video, I even put out a dare. I'll put my love of the Catholic Church, my devotion, and my giving of myself, my body, my life in suffering as a victim soul. I'll put that up against anyone. If you want to think that I'm not heartfelt, genuine, in line with the church, devoted and approved as a verified, bona fide Catholic by my bishop here or anywhere else, just dare me. I dare you. So, and it's nothing that we need to be doing anyway. That's judging. Jesus is our judge. That was another thing I mentioned my spiritual father after the horrible persecution and that priest back in fall of 1999, early September, having all of his homilies just a detraction of me personally. That was his homily. And I got a call, don't let your son go to Mass. It's terrible what he's saying about you and the lies and all. And you just, priests are not you're supposed to be preaching the gospel, not detracting a parishioner that you're bothered by or that freaks you out or whatever's the problem. But, or you detest with all your being, which that man did. I didn't realize how much. But he's very insecure, and I suppose, and that was before the ecstasies. I wasn't in my hometown when they started, and I never went to Mass again in my hometown because that, oh my gosh, that would have been bad. They would have been really freaked out and carrying on and going after me. And we do have an obligation to other people, not to cause them occasion of sin, if we know that likely they will start in and attack or judge or be nasty. It's just not worth it. We're not here on earth to although it's their choice and it's their problem if they don't grasp the numinous and the spiritual, and that God does what he wants with us. And who are we to judge others, especially when it's been discerned by those in authority? So, who are they to doubt that, or to say, you've cut off from all the structures of the church and you don't read the divine office? You don't have to. I did for several years. How many years has that person read the divine office every day, all the hours? Or even the 3 main hours? So, it doesn't matter. I read other things, or I did. My reading is very impeded now by my pain and the arachnoiditis. It's neurological. It does stuff to your neurological system. And I read this, I researched, try to keep up with anything they find out. And no, there's no cure for it, but I have a video I got to do on that because somebody's been putting out false information. And I feel bad for people with arachnoiditis because it's like a temptation to have that kind of false hope. There's no cure, and there can't be. We are not God. So, until they can replicate the spinal cord in the brain, there's not going to be a cure for arachnoiditis. But, so there's some GP out there who is retired and is very empathic, and also, though, wants to still be relevant in his medicine. And he might be dead now. I think he's still alive, but he puts out this stuff. He has. In the past, for years, he's known as a quack because he just keeps coming up with this stuff, that he has a cure for arachnoiditis. And no, he doesn't. No one does, so it's okay. But yeah, so we've got to be careful with how we judge or how we treat others. So that was pretty much, and also the three Hail Mary devotion. I talked about that in the video I did yesterday, but that I stopped. I already dropped. Didn't post it. And that is that we really, what Mary came to Mechtild to talk about was not the three Hail Marys, but to honor the Trinity. See, that was her point. She came to Mechtild and said, pray 3 Hail Marys daily, but while you're praying the first Hail Mary, ponder and honor God, the Father, for his power. The second Hail Mary, ponder and consider, deeply consider, meditate on, and honor Jesus and his wisdom. The third Hail Mary that you say or repeat, ponder and consider and give honor to the Holy Spirit for the love that the Holy Spirit has within him. So, it isn't, she isn't coming saying, honor me by saying Hail Marys to me. But she knew in the 13th century that everybody knew the Hail Mary. Everyone was able to say it, pray it, say it, however you want to term it, repeat it. And the rosary, people knew the rosary. And so they could think about, learn and think and ponder and honor the life of Christ through that type of prayer, and repeating the Hail Marys while they're meditating or thinking about different phases of Christ's life, and all on through. And back then, I don't know if they had all 3 mysteries. I haven't researched that. But in the John Paul II added a 4th mystery. See, he did, not God. It's okay if he did. That's beautiful. But it's not a must-have to do. And the point of it is to ponder the life of Christ and other aspects of Christ and the Holy Spirit, and in the third, is it the third mystery, or the luminous, or I don't know, maybe it's the third, where then you can ponder Mary and her death and her dormition, as it's called, and then her going to heaven. So it's a means, it's a tool, it's a prayer tool. The rosary is a kinesthetic, tactile tool, and it came from originally the hermits and monks from the early centuries would have called a prayer rope. They had a rope around their tunics, their outfits, and the hermits too, or they would just have a rope and knotted 150 knots in it, or even just 50, and then they would repeat 3 times, because they would repeat the Psalms. They memorized the Psalms. They didn't have Bibles to read then. They would memorize the Psalms. Some of them couldn't read, and repeat them. And they would keep track by going from knot to knot. And most of them was 50 knots, so then they would just do it through, start over again for the next 50 psalms, and then the final 50 psalms. There's 150 psalms. But that got converted. They utilized that idea was utilized then for the rosary. So many beads, I think there's 50 or something, and then you keep track that way of what Hail Mary you're on, and what they call the mysteries, what portions of Christ's life, from the nativity, from the angel coming on through the Annunciation, on through the crucifixion and resurrection, and etc. So and the Holy Spirit coming. That's why John Paul II added that for the next phase of our involvement, the Holy Spirit coming, and what is after that. So Pentecost, etc. So and the Eucharist, Jesus' institution of the Eucharist. So that's what it is, and we don't have to pray the Rosary. Somebody wrote and said, what's wrong with her, that she doesn't isn't in tune with that. That's not a beneficial prayer in her, the repetition and all, and well, I came to that. I said, well, you're nothing's more wrong than what was wrong with the great Saint Therese of Lisieux, who was canonized in the last century. The Little Flower, she's called. Therese, Little Therese, died when she was 23 or such, and made a saint really fairly soon after. So, but long enough, it wasn't like today where they're just breaking all their own rules and canonize someone in 3 or 4 years. So, which, whatever, I just don't even get involved in that. I think people pretty much know who's a good example and a good mentor and holy, and no one's perfect. So, but there are people who are certainly more evolved on earth than others, and have fewer sins, such as I have plenty of sins. I have so many sins, so I'm well aware of it, and faults, and I'm not that good at even breaking my faults. So but so no, she didn't like the Rosary. She said she'd rather wear a hair shirt than pray the Rosary. Now, she did pray it, with the other sisters. They would all pray the Rosary together, but she didn't like it, and she didn't pray it on her own because she didn't like it. And I asked my spiritual father about it. I said, well, I feel so bad because I don't like them. I just can't keep focused. I don't enjoy it. It's just such repetition. And he says, but I used to see it first, and I learned it. Oh my, that was a big thing even before I was Catholic. I wanted to learn how to pray the Rosary. And this commenter, this viewer said, and everybody says it's such a powerful prayer. Well, yes, it is. I think in part it's powerful because so many people pray it. The more people who pray it, even through history, something gains a lot of impact when we do things as a group and as a body of people. There's a power in that union of praying a certain prayer, repeating certain lines and things. But the whole point of it is it's a means to remember the life of Christ, to learn about it and to remember it and to honor it. Just like the devotion of the 3 Hail Marys isn't about the Hail Marys. It's about honoring these 3 aspects of each of the Trinity, each person of the Trinity, and this aspect for each: power, wisdom, and love. To honor them, Mary doesn't want to be hailed. She doesn't want to be honored or looked at. She always pointing to her son, do what my son tells you to do, she said at the wedding feast of Cana. At the cross, she was standing there, see my son. Don't look at me, don't hail me, don't honor me. But it's lovely too. She is Jesus's mother, and she's always helpful to us and selfless. She's with Jesus all the time. She's his handmaid. She's devoted to her son. Her whole existence in heaven is in helping dispense graces and in assisting him with souls, helping souls to grow and to love God and to keep their faith or whatever their problems on earth or in heaven. So, of course we can honor her. We honor great people. She's a human being, but she's the most perfect. She didn't have the sin that we all have. So, hey, I think that's pretty great. So, but I know she would not like her to be put in front of her son. She would not like that. And so that's why, we have to be very careful, even how we word our devotion or our appreciation of Mary. Appreciation of her is a good word. Gratitude. But the Hail Mary is an old prayer from Middle Ages, and it is easy to memorize and repeat. And some people, like my spiritual father says, he says, you don't like it because you've moved on. You've outgrown mental and verbal prayer. He says, you contemplate now. You're in contemplation and at times unitive prayer, where God totally takes over. And but mostly contemplation. The unitive is like when you're in ecstasy, and I'm not in ecstasy. I haven't been, other than in Mass. So, and that was a total it was as much closest to my death experience as anything I've experienced on earth, or in my body or mind or soul or heart. So, and it was profound. And I don't know why God gave that to me in Mass, other than for about 3 reasons that I've figured out over the years. A gift to me at a very base level, a gift to me for all the suffering. He gave me a relief from it, a total relief from suffering while I was in ecstasy. And it was wonderful. And even for about a half hour after, it was, my body just felt so good. But having an ecstasy is actually physiologically very hard on your body. You barely breathe, you barely have heart rate, your organs pretty much shut down. You don't have your faculties as far as bodily movement or governance of your mind. It's all God's. Everything of you belongs to God at that point. And that's a wonderful thing. But and then, of course, the persecution's terrible, and being run through the gamut of the mill, the grind, while they're discerning you and deciding this and that. And the first bishop ended up being very sarcastic and very nasty to me. I went to his home and to talk with him, because he had just cut me off totally, and he was my spiritual director for a while. And I couldn't get any answers. What was the problem? Why had he just cut me off? And he was retired then. And so he invited me in, but the face he made when he saw me, it was just like, I hate you. It just looked awful. I felt terrible. And he pretty much expressed ugliness. And I cried and cried even with him, telling him, I remember even saying, I loved you so much. I still do. Why is this? And when I said, I love you so, he looked at me, he was like 83 or 84, short, little stubby guy, old, and I was maybe, what was I? Oh, would have been 2012. I was 62, and I looked at him like, what on earth? He thought romantic love. I said, no, holy love of you as a human, as a soul, as a bishop, respectful love. Oh, good grief, get me a gag bag. But, I was, I was so beyond the temporal, anything of that sort. So I just, oh, good grief, But anyway, bless his heart. But he got nasty, and he mocked the ecstasy. Oh, just that trance you put yourself in. And I left there, I just sat and listened to him spew out. And I got on my little cell phone, the old flip-top type, that's what I had at the time, called my spiritual dog. And I was crying. I said, pray for Bishop, pray for Bishop. He's a soul in big trouble. His soul's in big trouble. It's in big trouble. Just the horrible way he acted and what he said about the ecstasy, which was to also had a great message for priests and for anyone as to what God wanted in the Mass, what God wants of us in the Mass. And I tried to explain that, and Bishop just didn't, he wasn't going to listen. Bishop Emeritus he was at the time. And just cynical and rude and mocking. And I just knew he was in such trouble. And it wasn't because of his rudeness to me, per se. I could have been any little nothing of God, who God had given this message, this understanding, as well as other things. And I never meant any harm, or I never asked for anything, and I prayed and prayed for God to take it away, in fact. But he was gone within like 2 months, 3 months. I knew. I prayed so hard for him, my spiritual dad did. And then when word came out that he had like a month to live, very fast-acting brain cancer that started about that time. So don't mess with being ugly about matters of God that we don't understand, or to the people with whom God utilizes for these things. I was just a person utilized. I wasn't anything special, important, or whatever. God has called me his little nothing, his poor gray mouse, his poor gray dove, or he called me his poor gray dove, but showed me as a little gray mouse that he lifted up by the tail. That was a separate time. So God's estimation of me is as a very humble nothing, and very imperfect, but he loves us even so. So this is another example. So God loves us, and he doesn't want other people putting us down, or especially accusing us of things when they haven't taken the time, for example, to listen to my videos to know the whole situation, But I don't blame the person. I said this in the video yesterday that I didn't post. I don't blame it at all, because she's a convert, I was a convert, and I was obnoxious. I was horrific. I was so full of myself and so self-righteous, and would go around and, well, I was very sincere. Also, I will say, I was so sincere, and I tried to learn all these protocols, all these rules, and I was so obedient to everything. I still am. But, God supersedes. If you can't sit at Mass, especially in an ecstasy in which you cannot move, and then you come out of it and you're ill for 3 days or whatever, and it makes your back worse, and you risk yourself being injured. That's why my neck is so bad, is those people didn't read my little sign and keep their hands off. And they didn't mean to, but they nearly broke my neck. I could have been killed right there and then. The doctor said, you could have been killed instantly had your neck snapped. And he says, it's a miracle it didn't when my head fell back. He says, your head's the weight of a bowling ball, like 14 to 16 pounds. And he said, that was a full force just snapped back. He says, it's a miracle you aren't dead. And then those poor people, just from not believing that the sign meant it, meditate. But see, if I had been allowed to have ecstasy on it rather than meditating, because when people meditate, they can move if they're shaken or touched or shoulders shook, or wake up, But if you're in ecstasy, you can't. So see, but they were so uptight about the ecstasy thing. What were people going to do? Have some kind of a big riot or something? It was so, even if I was the biggest faker or it was just totally false, big deal. No one was I wasn't making any big proclamations or making up anything about, the Virgin Mary says, everybody stop eating for a week, the world's coming to an end. Good grief. So, they knew me. That's why, I was worried at first the devil had me. And Bishop, absolutely not, you're not at all, So that wasn't their concern. I don't know what it was, but he turned on me, and so did Reverend Monsignor. I think a lot of it is that they were used to being able to figure out things and have control over stuff. And we don't have control over God. And if we don't learn that, and if we don't accept it, we can really make ourselves very unhappy and messed up. And then take it out on people because we don't have control. And no, that's rule number one that we all ought to learn, Protestant, Catholic, whatever, or nothing. No religion. God is in charge. God is in charge. We're not. So anyway, but these were some of the things I talked about in the other video. But I understand, because I couldn't understand, well, why aren't people all doing what we're supposed to do? We're all supposed to be at Mass on time. We're all supposed to stay through the end. We're supposed to kneel. We're supposed to blah. We're supposed to do the sign of the peace. We're supposed to not be awful to other people. We're not to gossip. We're not to judge. All these things, and plus all the Catholic protocols and things. I learned all that, and my spiritual father says, well, what do you think? Do you think that the Vatican has a police department and they come around and arrest people or whatever? He says, no. He says, the church and God expect people to do the right thing just because they want to do the right thing. They want to follow Christ. They want to live the gospel. And they want to be in line with the church and cooperate and worship in a beautiful manner. But there's no Vatican police, out to arrest people or to put them in prison because they're not living a good life or whatever, or they're judging someone. And he says, and then another time, John of the Cross came to me and told me, you are self-righteous. So, hey, listen, I know. And I knew it as soon as he said it, I knew it. I was just so overjoyed that John of the Cross told me. I was so thrilled that I had a visit from John of the Cross, even though he really, told me off. I loved it. But it was true. I knew it was true. It was exciting, and I really apologized to God, to John of the Cross. I told my spiritual father, I'm so sorry. I've been so self-righteous acting. And so I know, I'm, so, but I learned from that. And then when I was so horribly mistreated in the big way in my hometown by that priest having those 4 different sermons against me at 4 weekend masses, and all the problem it caused me then with 6 o'clock harassment, 6 a.m. harassment phone calls and threats, and then being shunned, and then the Protestant people who'd known me all my life, and the Catholics also who knew me all my life, they were horrified. But they knew me even growing up, in the town and stuff. But knew my parents and my relatives, and it created a real uproar in the town, where then the Protestant people would argue and really get onto, if they'd hear Catholics gossiping about me in any negative way, then they would want to, practically got to a fight point at the library one time, and I had to go around with my no, please don't, just ignore it, don't say anything, it's okay. And then eventually, within about a year or so, I had to leave town. It just got to be too much. And God had this assignment waiting for me in the city, nearby city. So, and more trouble, more persecution. So, it's ugly. The persecution is ugly. Being judged is ugly, but it happens, and it's a good thing because we learn how to deal with it then. And I understand it because I've done judging. So, and I know it's not a good thing to do. So anyway, after that, those masses and stuff, my spiritual father he was so upset that the priest would bastardize the Mass in that way, adulterate the Mass. They are not to be preaching about a parishioner with lies, no less, and detractions. They are to be preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ, and only that. And that's the refreshing part about the Catholic, another wonderful part about the Catholic Church. Never, other than, and they shouldn't do it, these bishop appeal weekends where they start talking about, the money things and the needs and all that. They should still stick with the gospel. I think most priests do, but I've heard some not. So, and it's preaching the gospel was a gift of the Catholic that I had it from Protestantism to Catholicism. I'd gotten so tired of hearing the ministers talk about their lives or their families or their political opinions, or the priests are not to talk politics. One got in big trouble in Wisconsin it's about 8 years ago or maybe it's 5 years ago. One of the elections, oh my, he got in trouble for having sermons, political sermons. And he was demoted. He was removed to I think he was removed for 6 months and from preaching at all and from his parish. And then he was given a small parish somewhere where he'd be kept an eye on big time. And it was, it can't be tolerated. Doesn't matter what political party. It can't be, going off of that and detracting a person to that. But I don't know if anyone even told the bishop, or who knows. But the bishop eventually, though, had other things sent, people that disliked me because of not knowing me and the lies that they would hear complaining about me. and he didn't even know me, but they assumed, he and Reverend Monsignor put all that onto this woman in the town who was a little bit extreme and excessive in her being a little gaga over spiritual things, phenomenon. She's really got all excited about anything phenomenal, and would get into these fringe type things, and that and she also, though bless her heart, had broken her upper back, and her neck was she was born deformed with her chest, and then her neck was fused, so she couldn't move her head, and was very short and long, sort of frizzed out hair. She did that, I think, trying to hide the scars on her neck from surgeries. But she didn't do herself favors then with appearance. But I don't blame her, because, you know, she didn't want her scars showing. So she had this long, and her hair was naturally sort of frizzy, and because of her birth deformity plus the broken back and everything, she stood and walked, and she was even more short than what she was, a tiny person anyway. And, you know, there it is. You know, man looks at the outer appearance, the Lord. So they thought she was me. They put all these bad things they'd heard about me onto this poor woman, who actually is a very holy woman. She's a saint. I think she passed, so she's definitely in heaven. She was so loving, very, very enthusiastic, which can rub Catholics wrong. There's just certain Catholic mannerisms. I think, you know, there was a comedy show that Raymond, what is it about Raymond, or it's called something about Raymond. And they were a Catholic family, and a lot of the sort of the typical Catholic ways of everyday Catholics was sort of brought out in a humorous way. You know, it's a group with certain mannerisms of sorts, can get that way, but it's so huge. None of that is solid or anything, but. So anyway, it's just, but I understand. So I'm not put out that the woman questioned, but I do remember my spiritual father saying, "Who is your judge?" And I said, "Jesus is." And he says, "And that's right, and don't you ever forget it. Jesus is your judge, no one else." And so it's always good to remember that if people do question or judge, but turn it to good. You know, try to explain better to them, or not. Figure it was too much for them to grasp. And all that did was to remind me that we can get so caught up, especially as converts or zealous in the faith, but zealous in the temporal Catholic world, the temporal Catholic traditions, the temporal tangibles of it all. We go to Mass, and are we worshiping God even, or are we worshiping the ritual? You know, we got to ask ourselves these tough questions, because no, God wants us to worship Him, and not these other things. These other things are creations of humankind over the centuries, and their intention is to make the Mass a beautiful experience on our part, to honor God with our devotion and with, cleaning up, coming to the banquet in proper wedding garments, as Jesus says in that one parable, and performing the rituals in unison, or however it is, and they change over the years, over the centuries. And we didn't even have pews a couple hundred years ago. Everybody stood. So all the time. So, standing at the gospel, yes, they stood all the time. So it's nothing to get too attached to all the temporal stuff, really. Cooperate, go if you can. If you don't have legs and it's hard to stand, then don't. If you're in ecstasy and can't stand, then don't. If you have arachnoiditis and it has progressed to the point where you can't sit like that, then you can't go. I mean, you can, but, being a martyr isn't what God wants of us on our own. Doing something stupid like that we know is going to make us sick for several days when we have other obligations. And when we've been subsumed into the Mass, it's not being against it. I'm as good a Catholic as anyone, and as bad a Catholic as any, too. Human. So, but the temporal laws are not, something to condemn anyone over. I do my best to have a pleasant attitude, to not look sick, to not act sick. And of course, then I get persecuted out in the world. I have in the past for, like even with the physical therapy group now. Well, you don't really have a medical necessity to have us work on your neck. Oh, I said, well, my neurosurgeon begs to differ. He happens to know otherwise, but I said, forget it, that's okay. God will take care of me. I didn't tell them God will take care of me, but He will. He will. But God doesn't like it when people do stuff like that. Obviously, He doesn't. And the poor bishop, but, God does. I'll talk about that some other time. This nun who had died, and she came back and gave the reasons why people die, at certain different ways people die and why, by God's view and by His choosing. It's very fascinating, very fascinating. And God will pluck us out if we're good people and holy and love Him and all, but we start making nasty mistakes that will condemn us if we keep it up. God will pluck us out to protect us from making matters worse for ourselves on earth. I'll go ahead and tell you what they are. And the other is, when a beautiful young person dies, they can have already fulfilled. They're already so beautiful of soul that God gives them the honor of heaven early. They don't have to live through this arduous life, even though it seems so tragic to all the rest of us, because we don't see as God sees. God, heaven isn't a punishment. Dying is not a punishment. God uses it for our good in all these different ways. And another way is God will often have somebody taken out of life if those around him are in big trouble, and He knows by removing that person it will shake them, and it will bring them to their knees, so to speak, and make them change their lives so that they can still have lifetime to make amends for themselves. And other people live a long, long time who are stinkers. And you think, oh my goodness, how is it that they're living a long time and this wonderful person has to die younger or whatever? Well, God is giving those stinkers a chance to still do better. He has hope that they'll do better. But then again, if it's somebody good who's really at risk, and same with those people, if they get to the point where they're really going to condemn themselves to hell by how they're behaving, He'll take mercy and pity on them and pluck them out of this life. So these are some of the ways that we die and why we die at different ages and things. And that's why I know, I've had about 4 times that I should be dead. and including that one time at Mass with my neck, flying off the stairs. The neurosurgeons at Harborview in Seattle said that was a miracle, that I was not dead or a quadriplegic from that. Didn't have one broken bone. I did have to get a crown. That was it. I had a cracked molar, but way in the back. But and I didn't know that for about 2 months or so. But it or 3 months, I guess, whatever. But and this septic shock thing, it's a miracle that I lived through that, given the fact that they were doing things that were harder on my body and totally not even connected with what the problem was. So I should have been dead the first hour they were messing with me, Narcaning me, and putting my body through that on top of having septic shock. So that was a miracle. But see, God wants me to still do something for my own life, to fulfill my mission and to keep on. I'm not ripe enough to be plucked. And he's giving me more time to redeem myself. So that's why I'm also, suffering more and in a concern about this mess I'm in here. Like just my vitamins, I got to get those done. I've got pans out to put away. I've got grouting to do. I've got planting to do. I'm just in a mess of tasks that I'm in over my head, and everything is a mess, and I can hardly think straight because my body feels all out of whack and dizzy. So this is a shame in here. This is embarrassing, but I deserve it. It's how it is. I'm gonna try to keep pick up here and try to get some energy. So God bless you all. I'll stop on this, but these are just lots of little things I'm sharing about. So God bless you all.